the Environmental Learning Center at Clackamas Community College. I'm Maggie, an educator here at the ELC, and this is week 8 of our Wetland Wildlife live stream series, where each week we learn about a different animal that calls the wetland their home. We've already learned about so many cool animals, from beavers to great blue herons, and this week I'm very excited to be looking at frogs with you all. Frogs are a really cool amphibian, a lot like our friend the salamander that we've already talked about. And wetlands, like the ELC, are super important for frogs because they need either still or slow moving water in order to lay their eggs. So these places are super important for them, and is a really great home. A wetland is an area of land that is covered in water, and that includes places like the ELC. We have plenty of water here. One of the coolest things about wetlands is the fact that they slow down, cool off, and help filter water, resulting in really clean, cool water that all types of plants and animals really enjoy and thrive off of. But before we get started learning about our friend the frog, I would first like to introduce Michelle, our camera person, who is the one behind the camera and the one monitoring the Zoom chat. So if you have any questions about frogs at any point during this live stream, please make sure to put them in the chat, and I'll make time at the end to answer them all. And you should also hopefully have an activity sheet in front of you titled Fun with Frogs. So the top part of this activity sheet is a little frog that you can color in the specific colors that frogs are, and draw a habitat or a home for this frog. So that's going to include water, things to eat, and a place to sleep and hide, which you'll know all about by the end of this live stream. There's also 3 lines at the bottom to write down cool facts that you learn about frogs today. And then also at the very bottom, it says, "When I heard a Pacific chorus frog call, it sounded like blank to me." So after this live stream, I hope that your teacher will play a video of a Pacific chorus frog croaking, so that you can think about and talk about what that sounds like to you. All right, let's go ahead and get started learning about frogs. So like I said, the habitat that frogs really thrive in is wetlands, because it allows them to lay their eggs and raise their young. But they also find plenty of food, water, shelter, space, and every aspect of habitat that they need. So when we're talking about adult frogs, they are carnivores, meaning that they only eat other animals. So they'll eat a lot of insects, slugs, any kind of small moving animal, or small, slow moving animal that they can catch, or even a fast moving one. And the way they catch it, you might have seen this before, is they'll catch it with their tongue, because they have a really long, really sticky tongue. And so I've got my own little tongue right here and a couple insects for me to try to catch down here. So a frog is, hopping around, sees a bug, wants to eat it, and they'll go and catch it with their tongue. How fun is that? So frogs are really, really good hunters. Their tongue is really great at sticking and grabbing those things. And so they're really successful at it. But one of my favorite things about frogs is they actually aren't carnivores throughout their entire lifespan. When they are in their earlier stages, they're actually living in the water. So it's not until they're adults that they'll leave the water. And while they're in the water, they're actually eating plants. So they'll actually go from only eating plants to or almost completely only eating plants to only eating other animals once they've left the water, which I think is super fascinating and super unique for the frog. But another adaptation that I mentioned was the fact that they can hop. So frogs have really, really strong legs, back legs, so they can actually jump 20 times their body length. So that would be like me jumping over 100 feet, which is, I don't even know how far away that would be, but it's far too far for me to jump. So the fact that they can do that is super cool. They also have webbed feet, and their strong legs help them swim through water as well. Even once they're adults and can come onto land, they can swim really well as well. One of my favorite types of frogs that live here at the ELC is called a Pacific chorus frog or a Pacific tree frog. Those are just 2 different names for the same type of frog. And they're really cute and they're really tiny. They're actually only the size of a Ritz cracker. You've probably had one of these before. So imagine just like a teeny tiny little green frog in this size, and that is a Ritz cracker. And another great thing about Pacific Forest frogs is the fact that they have the ability to climb trees because they have sticky pads at the end of their fingers. And so they're able to climb all types of trees around here and stay in them. So when it comes to the habitat that frogs live in, they'll be hiding in little crevices under rocks or in trees or all types of different places like that. But let's go ahead and talk about the lifespan or life cycle of the frog, because I keep talking about the fact that they start in the water and then they come out of the water. So what I've got here is some various toys of a frog at different stages of its life. So do you think you can figure out what order these go in? Well, firstly, we know that frogs start as eggs. So an adult frog will come into the water. It will find a stick or some other shallow thing in the water, and they will lay a bunch of these eggs. And then those eggs will hatch into tadpoles. You might have seen a tadpole before. They kind of look like fish, but they're not. So it's just this little guy with this big long tail, and it'll just be swimming around eating algae and small plants, and any other type of vegetation it can find in there until it gets enough food that it can start to grow. So it starts to grow legs first. You can see it also kind of is starting to have the face of a frog a little bit, if you look at that. We call these froglets. So it goes from an egg to a tadpole to a froglet. This is another froglet, but this time it has front legs too. So the tail is starting to get shorter as the frog develops further until it finally eventually reaches its full adult form. And at this point, it can actually leave the water and start breathing on land, either because it's grown lungs or also breathe through their skin in this really cool way. And so that's when it starts to eat other animals. So mostly insects and things with its tongue on land, which is super cool. So I'm super excited to share with you guys a couple of the frog species that live here at the ELC, and then also show you a real life egg mass, which is going to be super cool. So let's go ahead and take a look at the couple of frog photos that I have to share with you all. Okay. Good. So there are 12 frog and toad species native to Oregon. Here's a photo of all of them. And these two, if you can see them surrounded in yellow, are the two that we have spotted here at the ELC. So the first one is a northern red-legged frog. And so these frogs are pretty big. Well, they're about a little over 4 inches in length. So in comparison to the Pacific tree frog, they're pretty decently big. And they are named after the fact that they do have this like reddish hue about them. They also have these great yellow eyes. And here are some photos of some red-legged frogs spotted here at the ELC. Then we also got the Pacific chorus frog or the Pacific tree frog, which is my favorite type of frog and just so happens to be the most common frog in Oregon. I remember hearing these guys croaking outside my bedroom window when I was growing up, and I've also spotted them here at the ELC. So just a couple months ago, I've seen this frog right here, just a foot away from where we're standing right now. It was sitting on a railing, and it was looking at a crack in the wood post because there are all types of bugs crawling around in there. And so I was watching them and waiting for the opportunity to try to catch one and eat one, which was super cool. But another amazing adaptation about Pacific tree frogs is the fact that they can change color. So they can't change color instantly. It does take, I think, around 10 hours or so in order for them to slowly change. But they typically are green during the summertime and then are typically brown during the colder months, so like winter. And the reason for that is because of camouflage. So frogs want to blend into their environment in order to not be spotted by predators like owls or raccoons or any of those bigger animals that would want to eat them. And so being brown when a lot of the plants around you are brown, and then being green when a lot of the plants around you are green is super beneficial to them, and I think is just a super, super cool fact. So I'm actually today wearing the colors of a Pacific tree frog. So this is my summer outfit with my brown tan color. And then once summer yeah, this is my winter outfit, I mean. And then once summer comes around or spring comes around and all the plants start blooming and everything's green again, this will be my outfit, the beautiful green color here. So super cool. Earlier this morning, me and a friend waded through the wetland here at the ELC looking for some egg masses, and I actually found one of a red-legged frog. So I'm very excited to show you guys. So let's go ahead and take a look at this egg mass right here. I'm very excited because it has developed pretty far from just being an egg. It's almost ready to be tadpoles, which is super exciting. Let's go ahead and look at this. Oh, I see one moving around. So what we've got here is this big old blob. That one's moving too. Oh my goodness. We have this big blob of kind of loosely connected eggs. And so each one of those black little dots or black little kind of curve shapes are a little frog developing. And so some of these are still kind of just look like black circles. And so they're earlier on in their development. They haven't grown very much, but then there's some of these guys over here that actually look like they're growing tails, which is super exciting. So they'll continue to kind of wiggle around in here until they're big and strong enough to break out of this clear kind of jelly that's covering them, which is providing them nutrients and oxygen. And they'll break free and they'll start swimming around everywhere. So what looks like a lot of dirt on this egg mass is actually algae. Oh, it's so cute to see them swimming around. I hope you guys can see that. But this is actually covered in algae, just like the salamander egg mass we saw a few weeks ago, where this algae actually helps the egg mass get more oxygen. So it's something called a symbiotic relationship where the algae helps the egg mass and the egg mass helps the algae, which is super, super cool. But yeah, I also have with me a salamander egg mass for comparison. So we've already seen a salamander egg mass together, but as you can see, this egg mass is really, really solid, right? It's on the stick, it's holding its shape even after I've taken it out of the water. Frog egg masses don't do this. So this is for sure a salamander egg mass. Frog egg masses tend to fall apart a little bit more. So if I were to try to scoop this up out of the water, it would be falling out of my hands, basically. And that's how you know that it is a frog. So very exciting. There's one little egg kind of moving on its own. It's super cool. There's like dozens of these egg masses in the ELC right now because spring is here. And so they're all developing and we're going to be getting tadpoles and little baby salamanders really soon, which is super, super exciting. Alrighty. So happy that I got to share that egg mass with you all, especially the fact that it was a red-legged egg mass, which is a super unique frog egg mass to find. So I'm very excited. But I want to make sure that we have enough time to answer all of your questions about frogs. So go ahead and put those in the chat if you haven't already. Okay.
So first question is, are frogs reptiles?
It's a good question. Someone asked, are frogs reptiles? So they're actually not. Frogs and salamanders sometimes will be confused with reptiles, but reptiles actually have like scaly skin and tend to live in really dry climates, while amphibians, which is what frogs and salamanders are, have this really moist kind of slimy skin, and they need to be in a really wet environment. So places like wetlands and other areas with plenty of water. But yeah, great question.
You kind of answer that. Why do frogs have moist skin? And how many eggs can a frog lay?
Someone asked, how many eggs can a frog lay? So that's a really great question. I know they lay dozens of eggs at a time in these really large masses, and that they can lay multiple masses in a mating season, because a lot of times frog eggs will get eaten by other animals, by like fish, or larvae of various things. And so the frog, in order to make sure that at least some of its tadpoles hatch, needs to lay a lot of eggs. So I actually don't know exactly how many, but I just know it is a lot.
Forest frog live?
That's a good question. Someone asked, how long does a Pacific course frog live? So they actually have one of the shorter lifespans of only about 2 years. But then the red-legged frog that we also talked about, which is a little bit bigger of a frog, tends to live around 10 years. So it can really vary.
Next question, are there any poisonous frogs in the park?
That's a good question. Someone asked, are there any poisonous frogs in Oregon? I actually don't know about that. I know there's poisonous salamanders in Oregon, like the rough-skinned newt, but I would have to look into that. So I recommend that you look up if there's any poisonous ones in Oregon. But thank you so much for all your questions. I am so happy that you're so excited about frogs. I hope that you'll come by Wetlands sometime and try to look for them. I also hope that you will listen to that recording so that you can know the iconic call of the Pacific Course frog. But thank you so much for joining me. I hope you'll join us next time to learn about our friend the fox, which is super cool. But until then, take care, get outside, and respect all those who live there. Okay, bye.